For decades, humanity had looked to the stars with a mix of hope and dread. When the beacon came, a spiraling, iridescent light piercing the void, it confirmed humanity's greatest hope. They were not alone. But as the days passed and the beacon intensified, that hope soured into fear. The transmission was unlike anything the world had encountered. A series of complex, nonlinear patterns of light and sound defied every attempt at decoding. The world's most advanced artificial intelligences churned through the data, spitting out nothing but static. Global media stoked hysteria, broadcasting endless debates on whether the phenomenon signaled a peaceful encounter or impending doom. Governments scrambled to respond. The United Nations convened an emergency session where humanity's brightest minds debated endlessly. Was this contact a warning, a prelude to invasion? Amidst the cacophony of speculation, a consensus emerged. Humanity must prepare for the worst. The Xylthar ship appeared above the Pacific Ocean. Unlike anything crafted by human hands, it shimmered as if composed of liquid light, constantly shifting and reconfiguring itself. The ship spanned several kilometers in diameter, a sprawling structure that seemed to defy the laws of physics. Waves crashed violently beneath its presence, as if the very earth itself recoiled. Dr. Eleanor Price, a leading linguist and semiotician, stood among the assembled scientists in the secure UN command center in Geneva. The room was a chaotic hive of activity. Analysts parsed satellite imagery, physicists debated the ship's propulsion mechanics, and military advisors whispered of preemptive strikes. Eleanor's focus was on the incoming transmissions from the ship. Her expertise in ancient and extraterrestrial languages had earned her a seat at this table, though she felt more like a spectator to humanity's unraveling. "We're missing something," she murmured, running the latest pattern through her analysis software. The transmission wasn't random noise. It carried intent, structure, and meaning. But what? The room grew silent as the Xylthar sent a new signal. This one was different. A holographic image materialized in the center of the command room. It depicted a humanoid figure, tall, translucent, and composed of flowing energy. The room froze in awe and terror. The figure spoke, or rather, projected a series of overlapping frequencies that bypassed the ears and resonated directly in the mind. For Eleanor, the experience was overwhelming yet fascinating. The message was clear, but not in any language she knew. It felt like understanding without words, like emotion given form. "We are the Xylthar. We bring aid. Accept or face annihilation by your own hands." Okay. The room erupted into chaos. The word annihilation hit like a detonation. Military leaders interpreted it as a threat. Scientists debated whether it was a mistranslation. Eleanor, for her part, was certain the message's tone was misunderstood. "It's not a threat," she shouted over the din. "They're saying our own actions will destroy us if we don't accept their help." And her protests were drowned out by louder voices. The military was already mobilizing, and within hours, humanity's greatest arsenal was on high alert. Fighter jets circled the Xylthar ship, their sleek forms dwarfed by the alien behemoth. Submarines lurked in the depths, armed with nuclear warheads. In space, orbital weapons platforms adjusted their targeting arrays. World leaders addressed their citizens with carefully crafted speeches. They spoke of unity, vigilance, and the need for humanity to stand together in the face of the unknown. Beneath the rhetoric, fear simmered. In fear, Eleanor watched the escalation with growing despair. Her attempts to convey the peaceful intent behind the Zalthar message were dismissed as naivete. She turned to her colleague, Dr. Amin Patel, a physicist specializing in alien technology. Amin, we're about to start a war we can't win, she said. I know, he replied grimly, but what can we do? The generals have the world's ear, not us. Desperate, Eleanor devised a plan. She would attempt direct contact with the Zalthar. Using a modified transmitter, she sent a message encoded in the universal language of mathematics and logic. We seek understanding. Please clarify your intent. The response came swiftly. Another hologram appeared, this time addressing Eleanor directly. The Xylathar's form was more refined, its features almost human-like, as if adapting to facilitate communication. You misunderstand us. Your world is dying. We offer a terraforming solution. Accept it or perish from self-inflicted ruin. Eleanor's heart raced. They're trying to help, she said aloud, her voice trembling with urgency. But before she could share the message widely, an emergency alert blared across the command center. One of the fighter jets had fired a missile at the Zilthar ship. The missile never reached its target. It disintegrated mid-flight, obliterated by an invisible force field. The Zilthar ship responded by emitting a low-frequency pulse that disabled all electronic systems within a 1,000-mile radius. Fighter jets fell from the sky. Submarines went dark. The world watched in stunned silence as humanity's might was rendered powerless. The Zalthar sent another message, this one laced with unmistakable disappointment. We gain to preserve. You choose destruction. Understand this. Overkill ensures only mutual ruin. Eleanor felt the weight of those words. The Zalthar weren't referring to their own power, but to humanity's propensity for excess. The constant escalation, the inability to temper fear with reason. These were the true threats. But the Zalthar's restraint gave Eleanor hope. They hadn't retaliated. They still sought to communicate. She redoubled her efforts, crafting a message that outlined humanity's fear and misunderstanding, imploring the Zalthar to give them another chance. Hours passed in agonizing silence before the Zalthar responded. This time, the hologram spoke in a synthesized version of English, its voice calm yet firm. Your fear blinds you. We offer one final act of goodwill. The ship released a small crystalline object into the ocean. The device emitted a gentle glow, and within moments, the surrounding waters transformed. Pollutants dissolved, marine life flourished, and the air grew cleaner. It was a demonstration, a glimpse of what their terraforming technology could achieve. The Zalthar then sent their parting words. Learn from this. The path forward is yours to choose. With that, the ship ascended, vanishing into the cosmos as quickly as it had appeared. In the days that followed, humanity grappled with the consequences of its overreaction. The oceans had begun to heal thanks to the Zalthar's gift, but the scars of their near conflict remained. Trust in global leadership eroded, and the public demanded answers. Eleanor became a reluctant hero, her warnings now heeded too late. She addressed the United Nations with a sobering message. The Zaldar's lesson is clear. Our survival depends not on our weapons, but on our ability to overcome fear and embrace reason. What we call overkill is a reflection of our own insecurities. We must change, or we will not endure. Her words ignited a global movement for disarmament and cooperation. But the question lingered. Could humanity truly change? Or would the cycle of overreaction and escalation continue? Above all, one truth remained. The Xiothar had given humanity a second chance. Whether they deserved it was a question only time would answer. The sterile silence of space was broken only by the occasional hum of the Aegis Eternum's engines. Captain Elias Kale stared out of the viewport at the vast expanse of stars, their cold, indifferent light mocking the turmoil brewing within him. The mission brief had been simple. Or so they'd been told. Escort a diplomatic envoy to negotiate with the enigmatic Xythians, a species notorious for their advanced technology and cryptic behavior. But now, with half his crew missing and the envoy reduced to static field transmissions, Alia suspected they'd been pawns in a game far beyond their comprehension. "Captain, incoming transmission." Lieutenant Mira Solis's voice broke the uneasy quiet. Her tone was sharp, the clipped professionalism masking the undercurrent of fear that had infected the entire crew. "Patch it through," Elias commanded, turning away from the viewport. His rugged face, lined with years of service, betrayed none of the apprehension gnawing at his gut. The holographic display flickered to life, revealing the distorted visage of a Xythian emissary. The being's form was both familiar and alien, a shimmering amalgamation of translucent appendages and pulsating lights. Its voice resonated with an otherworldly cadence, like the echo of countless whispers layered upon one another. "Bit tien one, humans of the Aegis Eternum," the Xythian intoned. "You stand on the precipice of revelation. The events you have witnessed are but fragments of a greater design." Elias's jaw tightened. "Greater design? Is that what you call an unprovoked attack on my crew? Explain yourself." The Xythian's response was maddeningly cryptic. Before Elias could demand clarification, the transmission abruptly terminated, leaving the bridge in oppressive silence. Mira turned to him, her dark eyes reflecting the unease shared by everyone present. "What do we do now, Captain?" she asked. Elias exhaled slowly. "We find out what they mean by necessity, and we figure out why they've dragged us into this. Helm, set a course for the source of the signal that took out the envoy. Full speed." As the Aegis Eternum hurtled through the void, Elias assembled his senior officers in the war room. The chamber was dimly lit, the holographic projection of their current trajectory casting an eerie glow on their faces. Among them were Mira, Chief Engineer Rylan Voss, and Dr. Lenora Hayes, the ship's science officer. "The Xythians are testing us," Elias began, his voice steady but laced with urgency. "They've crippled our envoy and taken our people. Whatever their motives, it's clear they're pushing us towards something. Thoughts? Rylan, a burly man with a perpetually grease-streaked uniform, leaned forward. "Could be a show of strength. Maybe they're trying to see how we'll react under pressure." Lenora shook her head, her analytical mind racing. "It's more than that. The Xythians don't operate on conventional logic. Their entire culture revolves around the concept of efficiency, often at the expense of what we'd consider morality. If they're forcing us into this scenario, it's because they believe the outcome will serve their purpose." Mira frowned. "But what's their purpose? Why us? Why now?" Elias tapped the table, drawing their attention. "That's what we're going to find out. Lenora, I want you to analyze every scrap of data we've gathered on the Xythians. Rylan, prepare the ship for any eventuality. Mira, Coordinate with the tactical team. I don't want us caught off guard again. Dismissed. Thanks, sir. Hours later, the Aegis Eternum arrived at the source of the signal. What they found was a massive Zythian structure, a monolithic construct suspended in the void like a spider's web spun from starlight. Its surface shimmered with a kaleidoscope of colors, an intricate tapestry of energy patterns that defied human comprehension. Scanning the structure, Lenora reported from the science station. Her brow furrowed as streams of data scrolled across her console. It's some kind of computational nexus. The energy output is off the charts. This isn't just a facility, it's a mind. Elias's eyes narrowed. A mind? Explain. The Zythians' technology is fundamentally tied to their concept of collective intelligence, Lenora explained. This structure isn't just processing data, it's thinking, strategizing, and based on these readings, it's doing so at a scale far beyond anything we've ever encountered. Before Alias could respond, the ship's comm system crackled to life. This time, the Zythian's voice was clearer, more deliberate. You have arrived, as anticipated. Enter the Nexus, and your questions will find answers. Refuse, and your inefficiency will be terminated. Elias exchanged a grim look with his officers. Looks like we don't have a choice. Ryland, prepare a shuttle. Mira, you're with me. Lenora, monitor us from the ship and be ready to pull us out if things go sideways. The shuttle's descent into the Nexus was harrowing. The structure's energy fields pulsed around them, creating turbulence that rattled the craft like a leaf in a storm. When they finally landed in what appeared to be a hangar, Elias and Mira stepped out into an environment that defied logic. The walls seemed to shift and ripple, their surfaces alive with flowing streams of light and symbols. What you doing, Sonny? Come on, let me room for 211, please. It's too much. A Zythian emissary awaited them, its form even more intricate and imposing than the one they'd seen in the hologram. Follow, it commanded, turning and gliding away. But what you want to do is go and get help, answered Y hesitatingly. Elias and Mira exchanged wary glances but complied, their hands hovering near their weapons. They were led through a labyrinth of corridors, each one more surreal than the last, until they reached the chamber dominated by a colossal, crystalline structure. It pulsed with a rhythm that felt almost alive, resonating in their very bones. Like, this is the core, the emissary announced, the nexus of our collective intelligence. Why bring us here? Elias demanded. What do you want from us? The emissary's luminous form flickered. Your species is an anomaly, primitive yet resilient, inefficient yet adaptable. We have observed you for centuries, seeking to understand your paradoxical nature. Observed us? Merritt interjected. You've been watching us all this time? Yes, the emissary confirmed. And now, the time has come to test whether your inefficiency can be rectified or must be eradicated. Elias stepped forward, his voice hard. Test us. How? The crystalline core began to glow brighter, its rhythm accelerating. You will be given a choice. Accept integration into our collective, abandoning the chaos of individuality, or face annihilation. The true motive of this encounter is to determine whether humanity can evolve beyond its flawed state. The weight of the ultimatum hung heavy in the air. Elias's mind raced. Integration into the Zythian collective would mean the loss of their humanity, their individuality, their very essence. But refusal could spell the end of their species. We need time to consider, Elias said, his voice steady despite the storm within. Time is a luxury your inefficiency cannot afford, the emissary replied. Choose. Elias's gaze met Mira's. In her eyes, he saw his own determination reflected back at him. Turning back to the emissary, he squared his shoulders. If you want to test humanity, then let us show you what we're capable of. We don't bow to ultimatums. We forge our own path. The core's glow intensified and the emissary's form loomed larger. Very well. The test begins now. And as the chamber dissolved into blinding light, Elias braced himself for the fight of his life. Not just for his crew, but for the very survival of humanity itself. The light faded, and Captain Elias Kale found himself standing in an entirely new environment. The chamber they had entered was gone, replaced by a surreal, ever-shifting landscape. The ground beneath his boots felt solid, but was composed of swirling, translucent material. Above him, the sky was a roiling sea of dark clouds, shot through with jagged lines of light, like veins in some cosmic organism. Lieutenant Mira Solis stood beside him, her hand instinctively resting on her holstered weapon. Captain, she murmured, her voice tight. This doesn't feel like a test. It feels like a battlefield. Elias nodded grimly. Stay sharp. Whatever this is, the Zythians aren't playing games. A booming voice echoed around them, resonating from all directions. Humanity's inefficiency is rooted in its chaotic individuality. This test will measure your capacity to overcome it. Survive, and you may prove your worth. Through! Before Elias could respond, the ground trembled violently and the landscape began to morph. Structures rose from the ground, massive towers of the same swirling material, their surfaces covered in intricate glowing symbols. From the distance, mechanical forms began to emerge, marching with a precision that sent a chill down Elias's spine. Hostiles inbound, Mira reported, her voice calm despite the tension. She drew her weapon, its barrel glowing faintly as it charged. Defensive positions, Elias barked, his own weapon at the ready. We hold the line. The first wave of attackers struck with brutal efficiency. The machines were humanoid in form but grotesque in detail, their limbs unnaturally long and segmented, their faces featureless except for a single glowing eye. They moved with a fluidity that made them difficult to target, their attacks swift and devastating. Elias and Mira fought back with everything they had. Each shot from their weapons tore through the machine's sleek armor, but for every one they destroyed, two more seemed to take its place. Elias's training took over, his movements precise and deliberate as he directed Mira and kept the attackers at bay. Captain, Mira shouted over the cacophony, they were adapting to our tactics. We need to change our approach. Elias's mind raced. The Zythians weren't just testing their ability to fight. They were analyzing their strategy, probing for weaknesses. He glanced around, taking in the environment. The towers that had risen earlier seemed to pulse in rhythm with the attackers' movements. The towers, he said, pointing. They're coordinating the machines. We take them out, we disrupt their network. Mira nodded. Cover me. All plant charges. Go! Elias ordered, firing a volley to create an opening. Mira sprinted toward the nearest tower, moving with the agility and precision of a seasoned soldier. As Mira worked to set the charges, Elias held the line against the relentless tide of machines. His weapon's energy cells were nearly depleted, but he fought on, his focus unwavering. Every moment Mira needed felt like an eternity, but finally, her voice crackled over the comms. I'll just say more than back. Detonate on my mark, Elias replied, retreating toward her position. As soon as they were clear, he gave the command. Now! The explosion was deafening. A brilliant flash of light that obliterated the nearest tower. The effect was immediate. The machines faltered, their movements becoming erratic and disjointed. Elias allowed himself a brief moment of relief. It's working, Mira said, reloading her weapon. We take out the other towers, we win this. Then let's move, Elias said. No time to waste. The destruction of the towers turned the tide of the battle, but the cost was steep. The machines became more desperate, their attacks more reckless. Mira took a hit to her shoulder, the impact throwing her to the ground. Elias dragged her to cover, his own armor scorched and battered. Stay with me, Lieutenant, he said, applying a field dressing to her wound. We're almost through this. Mira winced but nodded, her resolve unbroken. Let's finish it, Captain. With the last of their energy cells and a final, desperate push, they destroyed the remaining towers. The machines collapsed, their bodies disintegrating into the swirling ground. The battlefield fell silent, leaving only the sound of Elias and Mira's ragged breathing. The environment began to shift again, the swirling ground solidifying into a smooth metallic surface. The oppressive clouds above parted, revealing a serene, star-filled sky. The Zythian emissary reappeared before them, its form as inscrutable as ever. You have demonstrated adaptability and resilience, it said, qualities that counteract your inefficiency. Elias glared at the emissary, his weapon still in hand. Was this your idea of a fair test? Throwing us into a slaughterhouse? Fairness is a human construct, the emissary replied. Efficiency is our measure. Your actions have provided valuable data. Mira stepped forward, her injured arm cradled against her chest. And what about our people, the ones you took? They have been evaluated, the emissary said. Some have proven efficient and will be returned. Others have not. Elias's temper flared. You don't get to decide that. The emissary's glow dimmed slightly, as if in contemplation. Then let us go, Elias said firmly. You've got your data. Leave humanity to forge its own path. The emissary regarded him silently for a moment before speaking. Very well. You will be returned to your vessel, but know this, the test is not over. Humanity's choices will determine its fate. Elias and Mira found themselves back aboard the Aegis Eternum, the familiar hum of the engines a welcome sound. The crew's missing members began to reappear, disoriented but alive. Relief swept through the ship, but Elias couldn't shake the weight of the emissary's words. Somesoever, saint they none, Captain, Mira said, her voice steady despite her exhaustion. Do you think they'll come back? Elias stared out at the stars, their cold light no longer mocking but challenging. I don't know, but if they do, we'll be ready. The Aegis Eternum set a course for home, carrying with it a battered crew and a renewed sense of purpose. Humanity's fight was far from over, but for now, they had survived. And that, Elias thought, was a lesson in overkill the Zythians wouldn't soon forget.